We're live. That's how we kick things off.
Yes,
But
it's officially means
normally
we're
not with like us teetering off screen here for a moment. But we'll just have to get cozy when we want to step in here, or just see half of us. But welcome to Office Hours. Things for those of you taking a look at this video after having seen some of our other Office Hours or attended live, are probably looking at this screen thinking this is a bit odd because Cameron and I always take up half the screen, and now we're taking up collectively half the screen, and we have somebody else on the other half of the screen. And we'll get to some formal introduction in a second, because we're gonna give people a bit to join. But Oleg, thanks so much for hopping into Office Hours. Really happy to have you. We got some really good questions that were submitted in advance. I'm saying that I actually haven't read them. I'm assuming they're good questions. We'll find out, right? We don't get that many dumb questions. Right?
debatable.
Okay, all right. Well, Cameron's pessimistic and I'm optimistic, and we'll let Oleg be the tiebreaker on whether your questions are in fact as stupid as dot. I'm just gonna end that in ellipsis and move on. But super excited to be here. So we're gonna head off to a quieter space in just a second. But we are right in the middle of the startup challenge. So we have our you want to show around while we're doing here?
We got some
we only
founders here.
We only have a few people here at the moment, because we have this is our traction cohort, which is 8 companies, and they are all trying to run as many experiments with customers as they can to get as much traction, like evidence from the market, as they can. But joining in a few hours, if you're watching this on the replay, this is the Friday the 26th, and in 5 o'clock or so, we'll get another 80-something or so entrepreneurs who are going to enter the room who don't have existing startups, and they're all going to get 60 seconds to pitch a brand new idea. They're going to form some teams around those popular ideas, and then they have to do the same thing, run as many experiences as they can with the market to get real evidence. It's a lot of fun. So that's why we're here, but wanted to be in the space there. You can see we've activated the space with all of our illustrations here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I vamped for enough time. So Oleg, welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Love to get the quick intro for, I don't know how many of our founders are gonna know you. So they should. But we're gonna fix that. If they don't, we're gonna fix that. So let us get to know you. Who are you? What are you doing here? What's happening right now?
Yeah. What's my motivation? Hey guys, so I've been on all sides of this equation, always still learning, but I've been on the founder startup journey 5 times myself. At one point, somewhat early on, I tripped over my feet and accidentally became a venture capitalist. And so I've gone back and forth. I've done it on the corp VC side with several funds on the West Coast. Was recruited away on behalf of the King of Saudi Arabia to do some venture and high-tech things over there. Launched a women-friendly entrepreneurship center while I was in the Middle East. Back to start another couple of SaaS companies. Co-ran a venture studio for a little while, or helped run a venture studio focused on prop tech and AI. Ran a fund of funds where I got to invest in venture capital funds, which was really cool. Shoes on the other foot. And I advise a fair number of startups and a family office, and weekend chef and a failed musician. I think that wrapped it up.
But you were successful as the weekend chef. Okay.
That's right. More so than absolutely.
So the only thing I didn't hear in there is private equity. Have you done?
Yeah. Well, I've advised companies on the sell side of private equity who were thinking about how do we sell, and private equity was on the other side of the equation. And I've done some project finance on private equity side, but like pure late stage multi-billion-dollar private equity deals, no, I haven't done that. Maybe that's what
you're still one of the good guys. It's all right. It's fine. I never pass up an opportunity to poke fun at private equity.
Yeah, no. Listen, regardless of the side, which side I'm on, I'm a builder. I see the world through the eyes of a builder and a founder. Whether I'm on the startup side, advisor, or investor, I mean, I can't help myself. That's how I see the world.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we're in really good company. We get a lot of builders in the chat, and so for those of you watching live, have you warmed up the chat?
I'm going to.
We're gonna
but
warm up
yeah,
the
but
chat,
maybe
'cause-
if you want to get the questions.
Yeah, for
rolling.
for some reason, Cameron always has to drop the first comment. I don't know what's up with that. But we're gonna warm up the chat here, just stoke it a little bit with his fire poker. But if you guys have questions live, we prioritize live questions. Drop them into the LinkedIn chat, which is either here or there, depending on where you're watching this. Drop those questions in. But you can always submit questions in advance. It's not on the Traction website yet. It's still on mine. JDM.bio. Hit the calendar. You can submit a question in advance. Allows you to fill out a little bit more than you're able to do in a little comment thing, especially if you're watching on your phone. So definitely recommend that, but we'll prioritize the live ones. So drop them on in there, but let's hit up the questions here. Because we're at the Carlson Center, I did not bring my Dungeons and Dragons dice. So we're just gonna go in numerical order for the questions. It's gonna really change the pace. So we all got our chicken scratch document where we pasted the questions in there. So we'll just go straight off of that. Let's do it. So we're gonna start with the B2B SaaS. They're in the 100K to 1 million ARR stage. So a little bit more substantive progress there, hopefully. And they're targeting small veterinary clinics with 2 to 8 veterinarians in it. They're at 420K ARR with their veterinary practice management software, but we're losing deals to a competitor that's 40% cheaper. Their product is clearly inferior, but price seems to matter more than features. How do we compete without racing to the bottom? And then they threw in some stats. 85 paying clients, average deal size is 5K annually. Competitor launched 8 months ago with basic features but aggressive pricing. We have better integrations and support, but vets are price sensitive, considering a light version, but worried about cannibalizing our main product. Okay. My first thought is a question, which you obviously can't answer unless you happen to be here live and want to throw that in the chat, but like, which is the assumption here is that it's a price sensitivity thing and not a value alignment thing. So like, is what they're paying for the thing that's 40% cheaper and yours just happens to have extra stuff that they're not finding much value in? Or is it that they're price sensitive? Because those are two really different possibilities. And I'm wondering, based on the usage data that you have now, is that all that other stuff that accounts for the other 40% in pricing? Is that stuff actually being utilized? And if so, to what degree and how much? And is there clustering that you can do based on the customers that you have? Did you say how many customers? 85 paying clinics. Yep. So like 85 should be enough to do some clustering there to see like who's in what category. So like if you can, for example, say that like, well, 40% of these are just never touching the other stuff, but they're in the basic stuff, then that just might mean you need pricing tiers. But that's, I guess I just have a question for now. I don't know, what do you think, Oleg?
No, I think you're dead on. I mean, when founders say, and I've been in this boat, like we're losing on price, I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's just call it 80%. It could be 70, it could be 85, but let's just say 80% of the time, it's really actually a perceived value problem, right? So the competitor, well, it sounds as though it's an inferior product, but it's good enough. So it's good enough for a chunk of a market. Is that really your market? Like when you're talking about ICP and ideal customer profile, like does this solve, and ask the question, does this solve my core pain for a price that I can stomach? So I'd be trying to ask the questions and get really clear on which customer segments are actually defecting and why, right? Are they a small 1 to 2 vet, practices with simpler needs? Well, maybe that's not your ICP. When you're saying you're losing deals because it's too expensive, is it after a demo, or are they never giving you the option to engage in the first place to learn about what you're actually doing? Right?
Two very different things.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Right. So is it just perception? So it really understanding it gets back to like, who is it that you're trying to serve, and are you actually talking to those people? Like, think about it from the ICP point of view.
What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered most of it here. I think going back to those 85 customers and understanding the breakdown between them and understanding, you shared it's a 5K average contract value. And so like, is there, a cluster of them that are much smaller, and those are the ones that are getting picked off that might look different than, some of the bigger ones, and how that value is ultimately being seen by those customers. So.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is like that there's a fear expressed considering a light version, but worried about cannibalizing our main product. It sounds like a light version is already cannibalizing your main product. So just want to throw that out there. Okay, cool. Well,
So before we go on, this may not be a good strategy in this case, but pharma companies do that all the time, right? They have the brand version and they have the generic, and they buy the generics, which potentially can cannibalize their own business, but they just put it under a different brand, right? I mean, there's so many ways to slice that up.
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. We'll move on to the next one. I'll go third this time now that we're hopefully all warmed up here. So this is a B2B SaaS targeting independent bookkeepers serving small businesses. They've got an MVP in progress. So based on our drop down, Oleg, that means that they don't have any revenue yet based on how our drop down works, but we're working on a product. All right, we're building automation tools for bookkeepers, but everyone we talk to does things completely differently. Some use QuickBooks, some use Xero, some use Excel. How do we build an MVP that works for a fragmented market? We've interviewed 40 plus bookkeepers. We have no two have the same workflow or tech stack. Building integrations for every accounting software would take 2+ years, considering focusing just on QuickBooks initially, but that eliminates 60% of our target market. Who wants to take it first? Sounds like the question is like, how do you build an MVP that works for a fragmented market when they need integrations and everyone needs something different?
I mean, the first thing, this isn't going to be an answer as much as maybe a way to be looking at it, is the risk that we see in going down the path of kind of customizing solutions for a variety of these has become much more of a service company, because you're creating these customized solutions that then don't really allow you to scale. So because it's ultimately that customization isn't repeatable from one customer to the next. And so maybe looking at what is the core need they're trying to ultimately have solved in this workflow. So is there like a one space where there's a common pattern amongst all of them versus trying to like design the entire process? That might then help you identify a way that you can get started with what that initial MVP, because ultimately your feature set should map to their highest needs and pains to start versus the overall workflow in its entirety. So that's kind of what first comes to mind, was just also being very cautious of the risk of building just this customized solution for each of them, because you're going to spend a lot of time and money in this non-scalable approach.
What do you think, Oleg?
No, I love it. I mean, it comes down to just, can you find and solve for one deeply felt pain across enough of the market to make sense? And that leads me back to thinking about jobs to be done, right? And you probably talk about that framework a fair amount. So we don't need to define it unless you think we need to do a double click into that. But just really work toward that. And what's the most painful part of their job, even if they're using different workflows? You have to find enough of them that are like have a similar most painful part of their job, right, to make sense. And if you're talking to 100 different people and they're doing 100 different things and they have 100 different problems, maybe we need to do a little bit more work.
There's I see a pattern a lot, and I think it might apply here because the stage is so early, where you get all this feedback from the market, like, oh, we wanted to integrate at X, oh, we wanted to integrate with Y, and oh, come back and talk to us when it can do that. And what that really was just an excuse to say not now.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're giving you a reason that you think you can act on, and if you were to act on it, then suddenly you can make the sale, when probably they were just saying like, wasn't a big enough problem anyway.
Another feature or another function or another drop-down menu option is never going to get you that sale.
Just one more. If I just have one more.
It's so tantalizing, always around the corner.
We are a Jira ticket away from product market fit. That's where we are. Awesome. Well, I really don't have anything to add to that, so we'll call that good. We did get a question in the chat. We always prioritize the live ones, so if you guys got a question in the chat, drop them down in there. But we'll hit up McCain here. Oleg, I think it's going to cut off the question. Yeah, if you want to see the whole thing, click the chat button on the far right hand side, and you'll be able to see the whole thing there. All right. I'm in the stage where I'm trying to validate my idea. I'm having trouble getting interviews with potential customers. I'm currently using LinkedIn messaging and getting no return messages. How would you suggest I get in front of people, landscapers in my niche, cold calling, networking, etc.? So a couple of like 30,000 foot view things. So one is that how you're going to get in front of customers in your niche is going to depend on those customers and where they hang out. I don't know. I don't have any particular insight into landscapers, so I won't be able to say anything more specific than that. But I did want to quickly address the LinkedIn messaging part, and then we can kind of go broader. So one of the, like, we all get so much junk on LinkedIn, and so much so that, like, Cameron and I always joke about how we have a predefined, like, LinkedIn hack filter that we use to automatically identify junk. So I have I have my first name set as Josh David, because that's the only way I can get it to say Josh David Miller. And he has it once even worse.
Yeah, Cameron R. dot, and so I get the auto bots or the AI bots that will just be like, "Hi, Cameron R." and
I get, "Hey, Josh David." And so, like, as soon as I get that, I know that they just pulled it from an automation, even though it literally lists my name at, like, it'll say JDM in quotes, and if you, like, read my bio, it says, call me JDM. But if you call me Josh, like, it's fine. I go by Josh as well. But, like, if you call me Josh David, I know it came from a bot. But anyway, so we're all used to those kinds of things. And so some specific strategies that you can use on LinkedIn to avoid that are a pattern that usually applies off LinkedIn as well. But the pattern is to first take the sale off the table. Because if you're doing customer discovery calls, and, like, take the sale off the table, there's no reason not to. And we're all more resistant to sales and sales calls. So take the sale off the table, make it clear that you have nothing to sell them. The second thing you can do is flatter their ego a little bit. They're the expert, like, you're wanting to talk to them because they have knowledge that you want to have access to. Another thing that you can do is, definitely, like, time bound it and everything, 15 minutes of your time, whatever, to make the ask a little bit smaller. And then the last thing, this is a really particular strategy that tends to work well, is to you drop in, like, a little throwaway line that says, "I know your time is really valuable, and I'm happy to pay you whatever whatever is you think is fair to get a half an hour of your time." What you're doing is more flattering their ego and signaling that the value is running the other way than a sales thing, which is you to me. This is the value running the other direction. And so in, like, it's probably been close to 10 years that I've told founders to do that when somebody told me that it was working. And I don't think anybody's ever actually taken them up on the money. And then again, the people who do want the money, you probably don't want to talk to them anyway. And so it's like, you also get this bonus filter in there. But it's a way that you can, again, like, use just the psychology of it, like behavioral economics, to your favor to get better responses on LinkedIn. And those generalized principles probably apply elsewhere too. But what do you guys think? Like, how you get in front of people? How do you get in front of landscapers? What's the best way?
Go ahead, Oleg.
All right, so yeah, I coach and advise at a couple of accelerators, and I come across this all the time with founders. LinkedIn is a funny animal. It's I try to make it hard for people to get a hold of me, just because I get solicited so much. So I feel that. Also, I'm actually surprised by how many people in my network within LinkedIn don't look at LinkedIn messaging at all. They don't even have it set up for notification. They'll respond to me years later saying, "Oops, sorry, I know it's been 8 years. I had no idea you said." Right. So be aware of that. Like, whenever you're trying to start a new company, a new business, and you're sending out messaging and it doesn't work, regardless of how you do it, don't think that that's a failure, because you're testing. It's so many variables. You're testing message, idea, problem, and channel all at once. Right. So part of what we should be doing is removing as many variables as possible and starting in our own backyard, if at all possible, face to face. Maybe we don't know all that many landscapers, right? So maybe we have to do something else. Regardless of whether you're doing it on LinkedIn or any other social network, a mechanism that can work, and also it also works with investors. When we're ready to start as a founder, want to reach out to investors, you have to build a little bit of a personal relationship, which means that if you want someone to answer, follow them, see what they talk about. When there's something that resonates relative to what they're talking about, have your outreach mention that, make it relevant to them, right? Because if they think that it's about, like, if you're trying to reach out to me and you make it about me and not about you, there's just a higher likelihood that I'm going to respond. And that also goes to ego, to your point.
Totally.
Yeah. The only addition I was going to say was, like, most of the times you can see the landscaping trucks all around town, and so it might be like, "Hey, I've seen your truck in the area. You live in a particular area, so the company's name is X," and either going up to their business and trying to have a conversation, or another channel of cold calling them in that fashion of things. So I think part of what we try to bring in is some of the rigor of science. So, like, how much of this hypothesis of the channel of LinkedIn is really kind of the approach. And how do you know you're right if this is going to be the channel that you're ultimately going to communicate? And then how might you run that against some other form of trying to get in front of them? So, is that you trying to go into their headquartered office or something of that sort, and that might yield some greater results? Yes, maybe less scalable in going forward, but helps in a manual way get the information that you're trying to find in this early discovery process. So you don't necessarily need the scalable solution in terms of channel as of yet. You just want to start getting those conversations to start to validate those pain points.
Yeah.
There's often a lot of some of the resistance to like the particular, I'm not speaking to McCain specifically here, but like the cold calling, cold email, like a lot of times there's resistance to those feeling wrong or gross or something like that, that can prevent us from wanting to engage with that. And so sometimes it's coming from that, where we're trying to actually find a way to get in front of them that doesn't present the opportunity for us to fall on our face quite so socially awkwardly, right, where we get that like sales type rejection. So if that's a part of it here, like then I would just like, then that's when I would start giving like the snarky answer, which is landscapers want to be found because they want to be hired. So you should be able to get all of the like the phone numbers for all the landscaping people that are around within reason. But like you should be able to get all of that information very easily. And so like, is cold calling the right approach? I don't know, but it's pretty easy to test.
Yeah. And and when it comes to, so it also depends on whether you're trying to have actual conversations with them versus surveys, right? Surveys should hopefully come later after you've already had the human to human conversations. But when it comes to surveys, I know we just shared that, well, maybe you don't want to pay them, but when it comes to surveys, maybe that's what it takes, like a $5 Amazon gift card when you're doing it en masse, right? That it's a different function and a different formula, but there is a role for that as well. That said, when face to face, just make it about them. And if you figure out the message that actually resonates, well, that means maybe you've hit upon a pain point that's actually worth solving.
Yeah, totally. Was there another question in the?
Yeah, there was from Kit.
All right.
So thanks, Kit, for joining us here. So
Go ahead.
I'll read this one, and whoever wants to take it first. So this is from Kit. There's a million AI companies coming out in every vertical. How do you determine if your product is actually superior to your competitors? And given how AI is growing exponentially, how do you create an effective moat to maintain competitive advantage once you have it?
All right, Kit. One question per person. There were like 3 in there. No, I'm kidding. I want to give the first one is the snarky answer that I want to give, which is how do you determine if your product is superior when customers tell you that it is? Like that's, I kind of want to like, that's not very helpful. So we'll give some helpful answers, but like, it's not about your product being superior. I think if you're trying to build a highly scalable startup and you're just working off of, can I be better? Then I think you're kind of putting yourself in a bad category. Like you want to be like, how can I be different, right? What is it that that I can position myself as to an underserved segment that they're underserved because they're not getting what they need from the existing company. So by definition, your product is superior because you're serving an underserved segment in the market that has that severe energy pay that isn't covered. But they're the ones to determine that. And so like, instead of coming at it from the perspective of here's my product, here's theirs, how do I compare these two? Come at it from the perspective of customers and saying which ones are not getting served, and then can I cover that need in a way that is compelling? Go ahead.
Take
it away.
I love that. It's so not about the competitors. I mean, yeah, you need to have competitors on your radar just to be informed about the space, right? But it's not about the competitors. It is absolutely 100% about the customer and what their problem is. And sure, it's harder when there's a lot of noise in the marketplace. And by noise, in this case, I mean, there are a lot of other businesses vying for that attention. All you need to do is just go from Reddit to the App Store or anywhere and everywhere in between. Look at the reviews, like look at the ratings, and then look at why, whether there are complaints, and if so, why, right? If there are a lot of people don't complain if what they're talking about doesn't matter to them, right? So if they're complaining, it means that they actually needed something. They had a job to be done, and whatever they paid money for to do this job didn't work. Ta-da! Right?
Ta-da! There's actually there's a test that you can do too called a boomerang test, which if you're in the early stages, it's where so it's like you do rapid prototyping or usability tests. You put your product in customers' hands, right? And then you're gathering qualitative data about, or subjective qualitative data about their usage of your product. The boomerang is that, but with competitor products. So you take a competitor's product and do that same qualitative subjective test, and you're able to surface a lot of those like kinds of complaints that are pretty well contextualized too. So like that's much more rigorous, I guess, and a larger effort than like culling through the reviews to find a starting point. But that's something else that can be done there as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, AI is moving so quickly. There's something new and different and maybe better, every week. So really don't worry about that. Focus on jobs to be done and outcome. And depending on the crowd, right? So we were talking about landscapers a little while back. There are plenty of different pieces of software. Maybe nothing is working because they're speaking the wrong language. The people who are building the software are maybe thinking at a tech, specs, etc. And the people who are meant to use it, landscapers, or any industry, maybe they're just not comfortable with AI, for example, right? Maybe there's a level of sophistication difference. So messaging ends up being a really important part of that formula.
I think the only thing I would add in was like oftentimes we say, oh, it looks like they're purchasing AI when ultimately they're buying the value or outcomes that are generated by AI. And so we often really get featured focus in how we're differentiating based on features, but not on value. And so when we contextualize it to the underserved market and what benefits and needs they're seeking, the features will ultimately be the enablement of that, but it's not that we're just competing on one feature versus the other. And so when we think of it about creating that leap in value is really what we're honing in on.
Absolutely. So one of Steve Jobs' favorite examples with this was there used to be a commercial, the dairy industry put a commercial on called Got Milk, like an entire series, which was perfect. There were no specs, right, about this. There's no, it gives you X nutrients or whatever else. It's about my mouth is dry because I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in it and I need something, right? Outcome driven. It's so powerful.
The defensibility question about about having an effective moat. There are some like AI specific things here that we could get into and that are probably worth calling out that have to do with the generalized tools getting generally better. And then so you get these like a lot of specialized tools that are basically like just built on top of an LLM, like a ChatGPT wrapper, right? And like and those might serve a function, but eventually as the language model improves, those kinds of things just get obliterated by just so there's some of that that we put in there. But otherwise, I don't think AI is fundamentally different from a defensibility perspective than anything else. I think again, there's some caveats and exceptions there, but so the strategies that you can do to maintain defensibility are kind of the same. So like one is like network effects. Can you have it such that your value is enhanced by who else is in the network there? Can you get economies of scale? Right. So can you, because you can grow larger before the competition can enter the space, can that lower costs sufficiently for something like that? Can you get economies of scope where you're doing a number of different things over time for that same group of customers so that they can't replace you with a tool, they have to replace you with 5 tools or a competitor who's already caught up to everything. You can get deeply integrated in where they are, so it's difficult to extricate you from their business or from their lives. You can get engagement and stickiness, all those kinds of things can be as well. Experience and brand can be a factor there as well. So there's a lot of different strategies you can use for defensibility that I think are probably just as applicable in AI as they are anywhere else.
Also, frankly, just building trust. Like if a customer trusts your product, they're not going to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Awesome.
Anything else for that?
No.
You good?
That was good.
Good? You good? Okay, cool. Did we get any others in the chat while we were going through?
No, we just got some kudos. So thank you. And then, some early comments on and answering that one. We got a good laugh from Kit as well. So
was this purely for ego? It's like, we know that this joke was from 5 minutes ago, but we want you all to know that somebody laughed. Doesn't even matter what the joke is. All right, cool. Was that all?
We're good.
Okay, cool. So we'll jump into the next question. You got a question, drop it in live. All right, so this is a B2C mobile app for busy working professionals who want to learn new skills. The product is live, but they are pre-revenue. Our micro-learning app, that's a new word for me. A micro-learning app has 8,000 users who complete lessons regularly, but we can't figure out what they'll actually pay for. We've tried subscriptions, course purchases, and certificates. Nothing works. What are we missing? Some additional details. Strong engagement metrics, 65% weekly active users, average 12 minutes per session. Users complete courses but won't pay for premium content certificates or ad-free experiences. Considering a B2B pivot to corporate training, but that's a completely different sales process. So we've got users, but they ain't paying. What are we missing? That's probably basically kind of my response to that too.
We'll let Ole, you want to start?
You want to pop the balloon?
Welcome to the lab.
Pop the balloon, Oleg.
Well, so they're saying that they don't know what they will pay for it, like in terms of pricing, but it's not clear that customers are willing to pay anything for it, right? I mean, so is there product market fit, ICP, all of that, right? Do they actually find a core problem that is not only a problem, but a problem someone is willing to take an action on and then pay for, right? So let's just assume that they figured it out. They just don't know how to price it. And beyond that is also how do you get them to pay for it, whether it's subscription or some other model. But if we're just talking about pricing, there are multiple frameworks and models. I really like it's Van Westendorp price sensitivity framework, which is really great. It's where you go out and you actually talk to the customers, right? And make sure that they first either use your product or have some sense of it, and then you ask them. And I know it can feel counterintuitive or maybe a little scary to go out and ask your customers, what value do you see in this? But it is by far the most direct way of actually doing it. And conceptually, what you're doing is you show them the product, they've experienced it, and then you ask them, what price for you would be prohibitively expensive? What's expensive, but you still consider it? What does a great deal look like? And the fourth one, what would be so cheap that it would feel sketchy, like it's suspiciously cheap, right? And you do this. You absolutely can do that. The same thing when you're B2B, when you're talking to enterprise to businesses. It may be a little bit more straightforward because you may not have to talk to 100 people, whereas if it's consumer, you may want to talk to a few more than just 5, 10 people. But that strategy and that mechanism actually works wonders, and people will tell you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I love all of that. Thanks for diving into the pricing. I guess where my mind's going, because I'm rereading this here, we've tried things such as subscriptions, course purchases, and certificate. Nothing works, and so I'm curious of how was this put in front of them, and was that something where it became a paywall and they no longer could use the platform, and did they therefore delete their accounts or stop using it? Or was this something where they had to subscribe for an additional set of value that might not have been fully tested yet? And so you're trying to upsell them when they're already getting sufficient value from what they're already engaging in currently on the platform or on the app that they're engaging in. And so, we often see this, it kind of looks like the free pilot that then, never had the ask at the end. And so they continue to engage, get value. And then, you kind of kicked the can down the road in terms of actually asking for that payment. And that the risk is that, you can continue to service them as users, but the long game of it is you don't have any way to fully sustainably solve that particular problem if you don't actually have them become customers. So I think if there's a way to move that ahead of the process of them actually engaging in the micro learning, I think would be of interest.
I agree with everything that's been said. So triple underline all those things. And then I think I'll just kind of summarize what I think I'm hearing, because I think it'll be sort of self-evident. So you're solving a problem that I don't have the denominator here, but you got 8,000 users to opt in to this being a problem. But what they're telling you is that it's not a severe enough problem to pay for. And so now you're bouncing around trying to find what will they pay for. And I think one of the mental traps that you might be in here is trying to figure out, within the context of delivering the value that you're already delivering, how do we make money off of delivering the value that they've already told you they're not going to pay for? And so that's so it's okay, well, we have a captive audience here. So what can we do? What problems do they have that we can solve? That's, I think, the way to think about it, as opposed to try to shift to, well, what if we threw ads on them? Will they pay to get rid of them? They won't even do that. Let's turn it into a course. Will they pay for that? They won't even do that. And so I think you're getting a pretty strong signal from these people. And I would trust it and say, is there another problem that they have that's severe and urgent enough that we can solve it? And if there's not, then that's why we have the term at the Traction Lab, an existential pivot. So just kind of leave that there. Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those uncomfortable situations. But yeah, that's all I got. Sorry. We don't always have good news.
This is the Traction Lab reality check.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
our
what that
reality
is?
check. Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. Fair enough.
Still need to turn that into an acronym, but sorry. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next question here. Question 4. All right, 4 out of the 5 that we got. We got a nice even 5 today. Looks like we might get through all of them. All right, cool. So this is a B2B SaaS. Cool. We're getting closer to my neck of the woods. B2B SaaS for local restaurants with 20 to 100 seats that take reservations. 20 to 100 seats that take reservations. Okay, cool. They're right now doing unpaid pilots. And they say restaurant owners love our table management system during pilots, but they keep delaying the decision to pay because cash flow is tight. We got that one again. How do we get restaurants to prioritize our software? Ouch. When they're always worried about money. 6 restaurants in unpaid pilots for 3+ months. They use it daily and say it helps, but restaurants operate on thin margins and see software as discretionary, considering revenue sharing model where we take a percentage of increased table turns instead of a fixed monthly fee. Did you want to say that out loud? You just kind of mumbled that to yourself.
I was just going to say that last monetization effort there, the considering a revenue share model for a percentage of increased turntables, sometimes can seem complicated from a time standpoint to even like calculate those on a regular basis. So, but that was just my initial thought. But
anybody want to jump in or like?
I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
I hear them saying that restaurants love the product. How do they know they love the product? And what does that actually mean? Have they actually quantified the value the restaurants are getting? I mean, restaurant owners always say cash is tight. Like even when they're buying new crystal or china for the place or paying open table, whatever it is they pay open table. So I mean, it sounds to me that what the restaurants are saying is, I'm not yet convinced that this is mission critical or that the ROI is obvious. Because obviously, if it saved them money or made them money, restaurants would, and there was proof, and there were proof points that was the case. Restaurants would do something about it. So it sounds like maybe it's not a product problem; it's maybe a value articulation and packaging problem. And then diving deeper into like if they actually are solving a problem, are they quantifying the value and explaining and putting it back on the restaurants that okay, it's not only convenient, but here are just number by number. Here's what we're actually doing to move the needle for you.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So this is not like necessarily super helpful in this case, but this is like a take a step back because we see this same pattern of in the B2B space where you get these free pilots and then you're like, how do I convert these free pilots to paid? And then you always have this trouble converting to paid. And I completely agree with what you were saying. Oh, like that, like this is either, it's probably not a product problem. It's either like I use like 3 Ps. So it's either the people, the promise, or the product. And product's usually like the last one, right? You either have the wrong audience or we made the wrong value proposition to them, and so they're not seeing that that follow through, or it's a product problem at the end. And so, but here Gesundheit. But here, the pilot here is the important part. And so you did an unpaid pilot. It says 3+ months. I'm assuming you put no time constraint on this pilot at all. It doesn't sound like there were any purchasing terms in the pilot. It doesn't sound like there's any definition of success in the pilot. So I don't like, this was just you asking them to beta test your software for you, which they were happy to do. That's what I'm seeing has actually happened. And if you were to have articulated in advance to these restaurants, so if we're going to increase, it sounds like the key value proposition here is increasing the table turns. So like we're going to increase your we're going to increase your table turns, by using our table management software. So we're going to measure table turns. We're going to do a pilot for 60 days. We're going to measure this. If we measure this and hit above this particular constraint, provided you give us this and we give you that, great. Hopefully you do it paid as well. Let's just get paid pilots. But like even if you don't, then it's like, okay, then the definition of success is that the 60 days we hit that threshold, and therefore it converts to like we're going to do then a paid agreement at X dollars per month, because now you've laid out all the terms in advance and you know exactly what you're selling them, and they still get the security of like you prove that you can do these table turns if that's really what it's about. But if you can't close it at all that, because you're going to see why it's falling apart, and it's probably going to be something related to the value or related to like the value on the dollar side or the value on the value proposition side. But it's not going to, you're not going to get to a point where it's like, why did this not work?
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, if you can get to a point where you can say, our data shows an additional 14, tables or 14 covers this week, and that equals X, $1,500. What's that value worth to you, right? I mean, once you get there, you can actually talk about, we can get you X savings or X revenue. How much are you willing to pay for it? Which should absolutely have been part of the pilot in the first place, to say, all right, here's what we're aiming for. What will it take? What does a win look like, right? You got to quantify this. Otherwise, nobody wins.
Totally. And it sounds like it should be straightforward, right? They're saying that they increase table turns. And so like that, and they know the restaurant knows their average ticket price. So like this should be something that where you can say, this is exactly how much added revenue you're getting each month. And so then it should be straightforward to convert that into to some pricing, it's a value-based pricing, for that. But I don't know. Was there no other live questions? All right. Well, we're on our delay. So we'll, it's a 45-second delay. So we'll do our final question that was submitted in advance. We got fewer this week than last week, but I won't hold it against you guys. We're always just answering everybody's questions, and everybody's smarter, and there's just no question left to ask. That's fine. But drop a question live, and we'll still have time to answer it, I think. But otherwise, we'll do our fifth question here. So this is another B2B SaaS, but for HR managers at companies with 100 to 1,000 employees. They're at less than 100K ARR. We're at 75K ARR, okay, with our employee feedback platform, but sales cycles are 8 to 12 months because every company wants to see ROI data before buying. How do we prove value when HR impact is hard to quantify? 35 paying customers, strong product satisfaction scores, but what prospects want case studies showing reduced turnover, improved engagement scores. HR teams struggle to justify software purchases with concrete ROI metrics, considering offering free pilots with success methods guarantees. So, here's a point of confusion. This is something that just doesn't add up to me. So I get the question. I want you guys to take the question first, but I just did math in my head. And if they have 35 paying customers and 75K ARR, then the average contract value is only $2,000. These are companies that have 100 to 1,000 employees, and $2,000 is going to cause them to need to see 8 to 12 months of data for an ROI on $2,000. Am I missing something?
I don't understand that math either. Maybe there's
maybe one of the numbers is wrong. Yeah, that doesn't add up to me. But if you're watching this live, we don't ask for names or anything. So if you're watching this live, maybe drop in a comment, or if you're not asking it live, or if you're not watching it live, drop it in still into the comments, and we'll hit a reply later. I think we can still answer it in the abstract, but the math isn't breaking out. So maybe we pull this out of that math and say the generalized problem of they have these really long sales cycles because these companies want to see ROI beforehand, which I'm assuming means that a pilot, that must be what they're saying. Or are they saying that they're like, what are the let's list all the, what are the possibilities here?
Well, for me, it sounds like they're not currently experiencing like the urgency and severity of the pain point. So they're willing to kind of put a $2,000 trial just in case something happens, to see if that is a small, almost kind of insurance premium for that particularly happening, but they're not seeing if anyone's actually transitioning, or that there is the retention there. So I think they're kind of just playing around with it, and not a huge investment, because there's no real urgency or severity really if they're taking 8 to 12 months to make that decision. The other thought that came to mind is that a part of the decision-making process? And so that's like all the budget someone really has to actually deploy. And so you've come in at a low price point just to get in the door. But this decision-making process, you haven't really mapped out in terms of like who the economic buyer in reality is for the full-fledged solution. So those are just my initial thoughts as I kind of take a peek at it.
What do you think, Oleg?
There are so many variables here and unknowns. So I'm going to, and I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm going to not focus on anything except for like the ROI part and that specific unknown. Maybe new customers want a pilot, but I also see them saying that the prospects want case studies. If you have 35 paying customers, unless we don't have any mechanisms in place to actually capture what value you're providing on a quantifiable basis, it might be work, but it should be really straightforward and methodical way to put together some case studies, right? You remove the names, to protect the innocent, and put together those case studies. I mean, that should be really straightforward, right? To show, here's what they started, here's what we're hoping for, here's how we just crushed it. And on average, this is not just an outlier, but you can see this over 3, 4, 5, 10, however many, customer case studies you want to show, right? Because at some point, I mean, you don't see, OpenAI getting a new customer and the customer saying, well, I want to, pilot. I mean, yeah, there's a free version of it, so maybe that's not a perfect example, but like Microsoft or whatever. Like once a brand is trusted, you should need to constantly have to prove yourself to a new customer, right? So, there's got to be something there.
I wonder if they say, how do we prove value when HR impact is hard to quantify? Am I reading too much into it to think that maybe the reason they're having this difficulty with ROI is that nobody is putting a value to this, including the company?
Right. Yeah. I hope that's not the case.
Because like they're saying that they want to see ROI data before buying, and then but the statement of how do we prove value when HR impact is hard to quantify? At least the startup is having trouble figuring out how to quantify this, it sounds like. And so like it sounds like nobody knows pain, that like what the actual consequence, like what the actual pain is here. Is that
that might be, you know what, now that I reread it, maybe that's the case. If that's the case, then the company, I mean, it's not the customer's responsibility to figure out where the value lies or how to quantify it, right? It's the businesses. And so there's more work that needs to be done there. Actually, I just realized I'm wearing a Humanly hat, so go Humanly.
there you go.
They have done a fantastic job figuring out, where the value lies, how to quantify it, and as have a lot of other HR tech companies. You have to be able to understand what it is, why it is that you're doing what you're doing, and what value does it provide? What is the outcome that you're able to empower the customer to get to, right? And if you can't do that, then you can't quantify it. But that's the first step.
Yeah, I think everything else I'm going to say is going to be based on like speculation, like if this, then that. So probably not worth maybe diving in too much more into, just because it is so easy. And this actually might be one of the harder questions we've gotten, in a good way, I guess, right?
Well, there's too much we don't know, right? When there are too many unknown variables. So I think it would be a different conversation if we had the founder or the team in the room and we can clarify some things.
I didn't mean the hardest question we ever gotten ever. I just meant like pre-submitted in office hours. This one's hard to answer, to be clear. But we do tell them every week, try to stump us. Yeah. So I guess they're like, I'll just leave it all vague. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we do have time for one more question. So if that sparked anything in you, or if you just have thoughts on any of the questions that we've talked about here, drop your thoughts into the comments. We'd love to see them. If you have an idea on this HR manager play, by all means do that. We will share it. So we'll vamp for a minute to allow for that before we call it. So what are the goings on right now? So we got the startup challenge that's happening right now. If you're watching this live and you want to come hang with entrepreneurs for the weekend, you can still get your ticket. So you can actually show up this evening, right? And you can just show up.
We'll let him in.
Cameron will open the door. He controls the facility here. To a degree, yes. But you could by all means come and participate. It's a lot of fun. Tickets are they $100 like that?
Yeah,
$100 something like that. Unless you're a student, then it's a lot cheaper than that, I think. But you guys should start challenge. The food is covered all weekend. Got some awesome mentors, cool judges. All that is all squared away. But you can learn startups by doing startups. We're actually going to force you to run experiments and log your experiments and form real hypotheses and document your methodology and do all of that to get rapid cycles from the market to find out if you're on the right track. And you get cash and in-kind prizes if you do particularly well. That's about as high as my voice can go. So that's the startup challenge happening tonight at the Carlson Center at Sac State.
I think I'm judging that.
What?
I think I'm going to be there to help judge that.
You're the judge.
Yes. Yeah. That's where we're all three here. Yeah. So if Oleg did not burst your bubble enough on the chat here, compete, and on Sunday
come for a second round of abuse.
Yeah. When I used to run events like this for Techstars, they were a bit different. But anyway, one of the regional guys from Techstars was asking me, he's like, I'm always curious, like, why people, facilitate these things. And I guess a lot of people have like a backstory and like, oh, I love helping people, and like they're the touchy-feely facilitator types. And I'm like, no. I love facilitating these because it's the one place where I can just be an asshole and everybody says thank you. Everybody thanks me for it.
There's a therapy session in there somewhere.
My wife's a therapist. Just gonna like throw that aside. But anyway, so we got the startup challenge going on. Oleg's gonna be here on Sunday. Cameron and I are here all weekend. Laura Good's gonna be here all weekend. A bunch of awesome people are here all weekend. So we got that. What else is happening? Oh, I'll be at Reno Startup Week next week, giving a talk on traction science. So if you're going to be in Reno for some reason, or come to Reno to hang out for Reno Startup Week, you can come hear my talk on Thursday. What else?
Other than that, we have some workshops going on at the center. So just keep an eye out for our weekly newsletter that comes our way. Then we also have gearing up for Grow Tech Fest. So JDM and I will be doing a workshop on the Friday, which I think is November 6th. So plug on into that awesome event that's going on up in Chico. And then we have our Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is the week of November 17th through 21st. There'll be a whole host of events and activities here. Wednesday will be a jam-packed day, from 1 million cups to a mentor sprint to then NorCal AngelCon. And JDM and I think we're doing our live recording of Zero to Traction. So if you want to come pepper us with questions live, you'll be part of our podcast going forward. So we'd love to have you there. And I think the last thing would be, we still have applications open for the Traction Lab. So if you're enjoying sessions like this and want to join the lab on a regular basis, your daily or maybe weekly sanity check we'll give you a daily one if you want one. That might change the economics for us, but nonetheless we'll take a look at it. But
we got a seat in the petri dish. Come on and have a seat.
But I think we've filibustered enough to get one final question.
And then well,
this
Oleg,
seems to work towards our advantage.
It does. Oleg, if you have anything to shamelessly plug, we'll come back to that right after McCain's question. So, all right. All right. I'm wrestling with starting dev on an MVP prior to validation, as I haven't validated my hypothesis. Would you suggest throwing spaghetti on the wall and trying and iterate as we go, or wait until my interviews show traction? I'm sure we all have thoughts, but you guys, I've been talking. Why don't you guys take it away?
Well, you had a little smirk there, so let's have you take it away first.
Dev should be like 8 steps down the line. Actual building. Right, you were saying you're in discovery. Great. You need to make sure to do enough discovery to have something that's directional data-wise. Once you do, if you do, let's just say optimistically, once you do, then you're doing the validation. And validation can take multiple steps. One of the really straightforward ones is like super basic landing page where you use the language that you captured verbatim from discovery. You put it in the validation with a single call to action, like get on the list or whatever, something depending on what you need, right? And see if that works. It's only after you do that and you go through multiple iterations of that to really understand, are you targeting the right people? Is it the right message? Is it a problem that actually resonates with some willingness to pay? When you have all of that, do you start thinking about the basic MVP way down the line?
I love all that. I agree with all that. There's one thing that you kind of almost mentioned it in passing that I think is probably worth calling out, which is the idea that a lot of founders will be like, I don't know what to put on my landing page. Like, I don't know what language to use there. And it's like, customers will tell you. Like, they will just tell you. So like, as you do these customer discovery reviews, how are they describing the problem? How are they describing the pain? Like, they're going to tell you that the language that resonates with people like them. And the way it resonates is they used it.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
So actually you think of it almost as a ratio. I mean, you need to be talking initially to at least 20 to 50 different people at least. And let's say you get 30, 40, 50 people to talk to, and you should be looking for at least 5 to 10 of them that are talking about the same granular problem, with at least, let's call it 5 people who are using verbatim the same language. You want to see those trends. Once you start to see that is the language you capture, and that's what you use. And you can test it, do A/B tests, right? But that is the language you use to see if it actually resonates. That's the validation.
And go ahead.
Go for it. And I'll add on.
I was going to say that's the when you say McCain like or do I wait till my interviews show traction? That's the traction, right? It's the consistency, right? Is that we're starting to see, oh, if I get in front of people like this, they at a predictable rate all say that this is one of their top 3 problems. Then at a predictable rate, they express the same relative price sensitivity, or it's costing them a certain something, or however that looks. And so that predictability in those conversations, as soon as those conversations start to just become redundant, is kind of how you know, like, oh, there's actually something here. And now I can move on to like, well, what are some effective channels and how can I work on conversions and all those other things that have to matter before they can even get to a piece of software. Like you can chuck some software on the internet, and even if you got lucky, won the lottery, and it was the right software, you still have no idea how to get it in front of people, what language is going to cause it to sell. So.
Absolutely. And to double click on that, and once you get to those top 3 problems, to use the same methodology to get them to choose, like, what's the one, right? That if you could only solve for that one problem, would they actually pull the trigger? And speaking of predictability, to get to the point where you can actually predict the answer that someone's going to give you based on this group that you've honed in on, because you know them so well at that point.
Totally.
That's what you're working towards.
I think the only like maybe cherry I'll put on the top here is I think having some rigor around the experimentation process. So it's not just I'm going and having conversations and like looking for the answer that I want to have happen. It's actually putting that hypothesis, go talk to 5 people. What validation or invalidation did you get? And then how therefore are you going to make a decision based on that data going forward? And so building in some rigor versus like, I went and talked to 50 people and generally this is kind of what they said when you kind of put it in some kind of learning as you go through the process so you can get more streamlined in who you're actually talking to, what those conversations are about, and then you start to see that pattern emerge. So I threw in a link to our experiment log. Feel free to download that. We also have a number of articles on how to go through that process, particularly founding with AI to help you test your assumptions, but adding some rigor even in that interview stage will help you in that process to actually make decisions on data, not just kind of vibes that you're feeling from your customers.
There's a great tool. So for those who use OpenAI's ChatGPT, there's one of the mom test GPTs is really good for that. If you know about the mom test as a concept, there's a version of the GPT that's less about telling you if your website is on point and more about using scientific method to ask the right questions, whether it's one-on-one or survey, right? To be able to get to that data and that predictability. It's free as long as you have access to ChatGPT, and absolutely worth using.
I have to look that up because I don't know that that particular GPT. We have a prompt that we use that's just you can just use in just straight ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever else that'll take the questions that you're thinking about asking and will evaluate them against the mom test, and then we'll also suggest alternatives for questions that don't do it. So pretty cool. Awesome. Well, that does take
us right at time.
Look at that. So Oleg, any shameless plugs? You got a book coming out or something?
I'm here for the greater good, man.
You're Captain America.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So, do you have the Captain America shirt too? I noticed the blue. It's the Fantastic Four. Okay, all right. So, all right. Well, that works. We're the Fantastic Three for today, obviously. And you make 4. The audience, you're the 4th.
There you go.
Only I would have thought of that. That would have been so much more impactful and meaningful if I didn't just say we're awesome and oh yeah, you guys too. Cameron, you want to take us home?
No. Oh, well, sure. I'm happy to close this one. Just thank you all for joining us. Oleg, you have an open invite. That link doesn't change. So if you want to surprise us and hop on, you're more than welcome.
Every Friday
if you're wanting, hey, this one Friday looks good, let us know and we'll queue it up. But we appreciate your time and energy. Thank you all for joining us and throwing your questions in the chat and then also submitting ahead of time. Obviously, we went through all 5, so we'll be reloading those up. So be sure to check out jdm.bio and submit your questions there. Other than that, join us tonight at the Startup Challenge and get judged fairly by Oleg.
Well, I'll be there. Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys later.
On Sunday. Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you all. Cheers.
Bye.